Okay, so welcome all once again. So today I am going to discuss this is an important topic called as direct and indirect semiconductors. Anybody has got an idea about what is direct and indirect semiconductors? Let me elaborate this topic. Instead of calling as a direct semiconductor, let me call this as a direct band gap semiconductor, and I will introduce here also indirect band gap semiconductors. Now, from this topic, anybody has information on that? What do you mean by direct band gap semiconductor, and what do we mean by indirect band gap semiconductor? Okay, so in direct and indirect band gap semiconductor, we need to do certain assumptions before we discuss this topic. What are those assumptions? We know how exactly solids are formed. For the formation of a solid material or a crystal lattice, there should be many atoms, isolated atoms, should combine together. Within them, there is an again attraction force, repulsive force. Both forces will try to balance each other, and it forms a solid. Okay, and when we discuss discrete atom or isolated atom, we have told about energy levels. We told n is equal to 1 corresponds to first energy level, 2 corresponds to second energy level, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to solids, we need to say it is an energy band, it's not an energy level. Okay, so we are focusing on energy bands. So we said already different energy band that exist in the solids, mainly the valence band, which is called as outermost band. The second is going to be the conduction band. The conduction band is a band which is above, after the forbidden gap. And these two bands, valence band at the bottom and conduction band above, they are separated by forbidden gap or forbidden band. And these bands will exhibit a variety of electrical properties also. Okay, especially the distance between the valence band and the conduction band, that gives you electrical properties. It tells you how exactly materials behave with reference to the the applied the electric field or electrical current. Okay, and in this topic we need to, as I told you in the beginning, we need to do certain assumptions. What is that assumption? We assume that the electron travel in a periodic in lattice. Okay, the distance what is covered in by the electron is going to be its periodic in the crystal lattice. That's an assumption we do here. And also we visualize that electron is traveling as a wave function. Okay, wave means that it's like whenever we say wave function, you can imagine like a sinusoidal wave. Okay, which has got positive peak and as well as negative peak. So therefore, even in crystal lattice, we assume that electrons are traveling in the form of a wave function, and it's going to be a plane wave. Okay, so which is going to be along x-axis. It's an x direction motion. Okay, that electrons are traveling, and that we indicate with a constant called as a propagation constant called as a k. So k is sometimes also called as a momentum. Momentum is nothing but the electrons which they are going to experience in the crystal lattice. So this is called as a k. Now here, why we need to discuss about this k function? Okay, wherein which electron travel, because these direct and indirect semiconductors are defined with reference to the uh, k propagation constant, not with reference to time. Okay, you will understand later why we need to plot y axis with energy level and x axis with k. Okay, k is nothing but it is called as a propagation constant or called as momentum of an electron. Okay, that's plotted along the x axis, and y axis indicates relative energy level. Then the semiconductor which falls into this. Okay, here we define what is called as direct and indirect semiconductors. And the electron, the space dependent wave function, the way in which the electron travels, that is categorized by a function called as psi sub k of x. You know that what this psi indicates. Psi is nothing but it is a wave function. It's a function wherein which electron travel. So there's a mathematical equation that defines the way the electron travel in a crystal lattice. It's given by u of kx comma x into e to the power of j kx into x. This is an exponential function, of course, that's multiplied with the u function here, which is called, this function gets modulate because of this exponential function, and this is going to be periodic in nature. Okay, so as we already assumed that electron travel with a periodicity, that means regular intervals of time electron occupy. It's like in hopping, we have said last class itself, electron travel something like this. Okay, so that is characterized by this particular wave function. Okay, and also we assume that electron travel in a periodicity, it doesn't travel in abnormal or random motion. That's what assumption we do here. And I talked about this EK diagram where we plot y-axis with electron energy and x-axis with propagation constant, also called as momentum. So here we discuss the what do you mean by direct semiconductor and what do you mean by indirect semiconductor. And let us see the periodicity here. And periodicity of electrons should be, as I told you, it has got the both x component and as well as y component. So it is better to visualize them in 3D rather than visualizing as 1D or 2D. Okay, so we'll see the real motion of electrons when you see the wave function in 3D. Okay, so we can analyze easily the directions in a crystal. That becomes easy for us when you visualize electron motion in a 3D, 3 dimension. Okay. Okay, let's look at this example what I have given here. It is with reference to the diagrams here. So quickly let me move to those diagrams before I illustrate what do we mean by with reference to band structure of gallium arsenide. We define what is called as a CB. CB stands for conduction band minimum, and VB stands for valence band maximum. And if that happens at k is equal to 0, then such kind of materials are called as direct band gap semiconductors. Okay, so this is simple definition. From here itself we can understand what do we mean by direct band gap semiconductor. Example for direct band gap semiconductor is gallium arsenide. So for gallium arsenide, if you plot this, the property characteristics in the EK diagram, so we can see that the conduction band minimum energy level of conduction band, maximum energy level of the valence band, they occur at exactly k is equal to 0. So what do you mean by that? So that means electron energy transition from conduction band to the valence band, which happens without the change in the value of k. K already we said it is nothing but it is a propagation constant. So without manipulating this k value, energy transition from an electron, let's assume here already electron is present in the conduction band, it has acquired some energy, and movement of electron from the conduction band to the valence band. Okay, last class we talked about recombination process. Okay, what do we mean by recombination process? What do we mean by recombination process? We discussed about two energy bands. One is upper level is conduction band, lower level is going to be the valence band, and so this is higher energy level. We assume that electron is residing here at the top of or in the conduction band, and the electron might have acquired some energy to enter into this conduction band. Energy may be either in the form of thermal, or it may be in the form of the photonic energy. So these electrons are acquired got some energy now. So now electrons has to come back, and because according to the Pauli's exclusion principle, electron cannot stay in higher state for long time. They have to come back to their lower energy state. Okay, so here once electron leaves its position, there exist an empty states here. That states need to get filled either immediately or some later point of time. So here, so in this definition of direct band gap semiconductor, these electrons coming back to the valence band from the conduction band, this level we talked about, it is going to be the minimum conduction band energy level. So here the surface here indicates its maximum valence band energy level. Okay, and electron coming back from conduction band to the valence band, this happens at k is equal to 0. Okay. So that means while coming back, the electron gives energy in the form of light. Okay. So that's going to be, that's called as a recombination process here. Electron occupying back its the empty state here, it gets filled with lower energy state, but while coming back, it exhibits it generates energy in the form of light. So when we say light, there are many applications where we need to generate light. Example is light emitting diode. So the same basic principle what I explained now is used in light emitting diode. So electrons in the light emitting diode, they are excited, and when they come back to its lower energy state, electrons give up energy in the form of light. How much energy they give? Okay, that is nothing but the difference of this energy bands. Suppose if I call this as upper energy band as EC, and the lower valence energy band as EV, EC minus EV, the energy difference between that, the electron is releases that much amount of energy in the form of light. Okay, so all materials, okay, so this is called direct band gap semiconductors. All materials that belongs to the direct band gap semiconductor, are all materials that produces energy in the form of a light, are called as direct band gap semiconductor. In simple way, of direct band gap semiconductor, the conduction band minimum energy level, what we said here, this is the minimum conduction band energy level. Valence band energy level, that is maximum here, that happens at k is equal to 0. Okay. The best example is gallium arsenide. Generally, all compound semiconductors belong to this direct band gap semiconductor. Some questions they may ask even in gate examination also. They may give some example material like gallium arsenide, germanium, silicon, and ask you to categorize them as direct band gap semiconductor or indirect band gap semiconductor. So generally, compound semiconductors, they belong to the direct band gap semiconductor. Okay, let's see another hand how exactly indirect band gap semiconductor with the way we define. So they have a band structure. If you consider band structure of silicon, so silicon is elemental semiconductor, whereas gallium arsenide is compound semiconductor. Okay, so in this kind of semiconductors like silicon, germanium, carbon, so there are numerous the elemental semiconductors. There, the energy transitions, electron while coming back from conduction band energy level, that's the minimum conduction band energy level, to the valence band energy level or maximum valence band energy level, it happens at different value of k, but k not equal to 0. Okay, that means electron energy transition from conduction band to the valence band happens with a change in the value of k. It doesn't happen with k value as 0. Okay, so that's the difference between direct band gap semiconductor and indirect band gap semiconductor. But here again the process is same. Electron when it is coming back to the valence band, it doesn't come directly like this. It will come a different value of k. That means electrons here, they enter into a temporary state called as a defective state, and then they come back to the valence band state. Okay, so that means it makes multiple transitions. It makes the intermediate transition to come back to the valence band energy level here. So that is the definition of indirect band gap semiconductor. Okay, so it happens at different value of k. Okay, that's the point to be noted here. So based on these examples what we told, we can there are two classes of semiconductor energy bands. One is direct band gap semiconductor, indirect band gap semiconductor. So change in k, that means which requires a change in electron momentum here. Okay, so these diagrams I would like to take you to directly to the diagrams here. Okay, so it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, yeah, these are the diagrams you can see here. Okay, so most of the details what I have discussed so far is explained here. Okay, so you can see here in this diagram we talked about conduction band energy level minimum. So this is a conduction band energy level, minimum energy level of the conduction band. So here this bottom line is maximum energy level of the conduction band. So this is an EK diagram. Y-axis represents energy level. So this is y-axis, which it gives you energy level, and x-axis is nothing but a propagation constant. So you can see here I have shown here an electron here. Okay. So momentum of electron and the empty state is same. You can see this electron which is present here, and k value which is going to be 0 here. Both are in the same direction, same, aligned to the same k is equal to 0 value. Okay. So here there is no change in the momentum. No momentum is required for the electron to fall from conduction band to the valence band here. Okay. So while coming from conduction band to the valence band, electron radiate energy in the form of a light. That light energy is given by Eg, which is the energy difference between conduction band and the valence band, which is equal to h into mu. Okay. So this is the mathematical relation, the amount of energy given by the electron in the form of a light. So this happens at k is equal to 0. So this complete state is valence band state, and this is nothing but conduction band, and this is a vacant state here, since electron earlier it has made a transition, or some electron has left its position, and now this electron from the conduction band will come back to its lower energy state, and it fills this vacant state here. So these kind of semiconductors are called as direct semiconductors or direct band gap semiconductors. In examination, you have to illustrate direct and indirect band gap semiconductors via these two diagrams what I have shown here. Okay. So next, look at the diagram for indirect semiconductors. Indirect semiconductors, once again we have conduction band energy level here. This is the minimum energy level of the conduction band, and there is a maximum energy level of the conduction band lies here. They are not aligned to the same value of k. So we have here a different value of k. You can see here the where the electron is residing, that has got different value of k or different value of momentum. Now the electron it has to enter into the defect state, so which is called as a ET here in this case. So electron from here it makes a transition like this to the defect state, a state with k is equal to 0. Now it gets aligned to the empty state here. So then it can fall directly to this, it can enter directly into this, fill this the vacant state present in the valence band here. Okay. So now here this indirect way of entering by the electron to fill this vacant state is called as indirect semiconductors here. So when electron moves from higher energy level to the lower, it needs to change in momentum. So you are seeing here there is a change in momentum by the electron. Suppose if electron is here, that changes its momentum by changing the value of k, different value of k to k is equal to 0, and it then comes back to the empty state which you see in the valence band here. But now electron loses momentum, okay, by interacting with the phonon here. So here we said that photons are emitted when electron comes back from conduction band to the valence band, whereas here phonons are emitted here. So this is nothing but the energy which is given by the electron is in the form of heat. Okay. So thermal energy is generated in indirect semiconductors, whereas photonic energy is generated in direct band gap semiconductors here. Now depending upon these two type of the semiconductors, direct and indirect semiconductors, we can classify materials. All compound semiconductors fall into this direct band gap semiconductors because they emit light. Most of the compound semiconductors, they emit light. So they are called as their output is going to be light, okay, when they fall from conduction band to the valence band. Whereas here electron emits energy in the form of heat by entering into the defect state and later on occupying this vacant state. So electron emits energy in the form of a heat. Okay. Example is silicon, germanium, all elemental or most of the elemental semiconductors, they belong to the indirect semiconductor category. Okay, let's go back and see what point we have talked here. So you can see indirect diagrams we have seen. So indirect band gap semiconductor example is silicon, do not fall directly to the valence band. So they enter into the defect state and then it falls into the vacant to fill the vacant state. It undergoes a momentum change and energy change. That is undergoes to defective state. It enters into the defect state within the band gap, and then it comes back to the vacant state in the valence band here. So while coming back, energy is given up in the form of a heat to the lattice. So these indirect band gap semiconductors generate heat when they come back to the valence band. Direct band gap semiconductor example is gallium arsenide. Electron falls directly to the valence band maximum from the conduction band minimum. Difference in the energy state E2 minus E1, or conduction band energy level minus the valence band energy level. It is given in the form of a photon of light. So which semiconductor can be used for the device requiring light output? It is nothing but direct band gap semiconductor. So applications is LEDs and lasers. They make use of direct band gap semiconductors here. So with that, I think we have covered what do we mean by direct and indirect band gap semiconductors. We have discussed about EK diagram, and we have given even what is the output energy with reference to indirect band gap semiconductor and direct band gap semiconductors here. At this point, if students has got any doubt, we can take up before we proceed to the next topic. Any questions are there? Okay, so here let us try to understand drift of carriers in electric and magnetic fields. So now we understood now so far in a solid there are two bands, one is valence band and conduction band, which is of more interest compared to lower energy levels. So now let us try to apply electric field, and that in turn generates the creates magnetic field, and we will see that how exactly the carriers move in the presence of both electric field and magnetic field here. Okay. So what do you mean by electric and magnetic? Because once you apply potential, electric potential, so the electrons will have it will experience electric field, and later on you can see that here once they get electric field, they tend to move. Now direction of electron is very important here, in which direction the electrons are moving. So that is very important here now, and also we will discuss here what factor does the electron movement depends upon. Okay. So here primarily electron movement depends upon the concentration. Again here knowledge of carrier concentration is very important here in a solid. Okay. When we say carrier concentration, we are interested in electron concentration and hole concentration. So these are the two things we need to understand here. So for this electron concentration and hole concentration, so we are trying to estimate electrical current here. What is the quantity of current flowing in a solid? To analyze the amount of current flowing in a, or calculate current flow in a solid, we need to apply electric field and the magnetic fields. Of course, this electric field in turn generates magnetic field. Okay, these are the two things results in a current flow here. Now let us see what factors decides the current flow. Number one is electron concentration. Remember here we are discussing with reference to semiconductor, not any conductor. Okay, so small n here we represent to say it is an electron concentration in semiconductor, and small p indicates hole concentration in a semiconductor. So now do you think that this electron concentration and hole concentration is sufficient to measure current flow in a semiconductor due to the application of electric and magnetic field? In my view, in my opinion, these two are not sufficient. There are other parameters also which we need to consider. What are the other parameters? In addition to the values of electron concentration and hole concentration, so electrons and holes, they undergo several collisions. Okay. We will see with reference to what collisions will happen. So collisions of charge carriers, collision means they hit other silicon atoms. Suppose if I consider silicon as a semiconductor material, in a crystal lattice, the variety of the silicon atoms which you can find, now electrons while moving, it collides with numerous silicon atoms. Now here itself we can get to know that if electron is colliding, if the amount of collision increases, what will happen to the current? Or another way, let me ask you here.
Increase.
Pardon me?
It will increase, sir.
It decreases, exactly, because if more the collisions, amount of the current will decrease certainly. And now here, with reference to what collision takes place here, one way collisions can be visualized as lattice collisions. That means this electron may collide with the silicon lattice of neighboring atoms or other silicon atoms. That is one possibility. Other possibility is charge carriers even collide with impurity elements. You know that last class we discussed about N type and P type semiconductors. They are called as impure semiconductors. When we say impure semiconductors, along with silicon atoms, you even see impurity elements like boron, phosphorus. In case of N type semiconductor, you see phosphorus impurities. In case of P type semiconductor, we see boron kind of impurities. There are chances of charge carriers colliding with those impurities as well. The moment charge carriers collide with either lattice atoms or impurity atoms here, they change the direction. Okay, they get diverted, their motion will get affected, and because since motion get affected, definitely there is a reduction in the speed of an charge carrier, or mobility will decrease. Once mobility decreases, then definitely you will get low current here. Okay. So, this is almost like analogy is like when we ride a vehicle in a main road. Okay. You definitely experience lot of humps, or somebody may come opposite to you, or some other vehicle may come. So, all these things as a in a main road you will experience it. So, these things will affect your speed also. Suppose in a road, if you are traveling in a road with lot of the pits, or you can say the humps and bumps, definitely your speed will decrease. On other hand, if road is perfect, but still if you experience lot of vehicles moving adjacent to you or opposite to you, then also the speed will get decrease. So, the analogy is same even in semiconductors. Okay. Even in semiconductors also, charge carriers will undergo lattice kind of collision or impurity kind of collisions. To clear this topic more, I would like to take you to the a different sort of collision that happens in a semiconductor. Yeah, if you look at this, uh, let me zoom it. Look at here now. These are the silicon atoms what you see in a lattice. In reality, this may not be aligned perfectly like this, but you see some periodicity in the silicon atoms as well. Look at here, these are called as the thermal vibrations. What do you mean by thermal vibrations? In any solid material, the atomic lattice vibrates at temperatures above 0 Kelvin. If in any material like semiconductor material, if the temperature increases beyond 0 Kelvin, then this lattice atomic atoms will start vibrating at their own positions here. You are seeing here the circle indicates here the atoms, silicon atom is vibrating at its own position here. Okay. So, these are called as the thermal vibrations here, and this thermal vibration causes the charge carriers to get the collide with the neighbor atoms here. Okay. So, this effect is called as lattice scattering here. Okay. So, lattice scattering is when an electron collides with the vibrating lattice, okay, causing it to change the direction. You can see here electron might have started its journey from here, and since there are many atoms which are thermally they are vibrating here, and electrons will collide with that thermally vibrating atom, and it changes its direction here. So, that means its mobility get affected here, and this factor, this lattice scattering depends on temperature also. More the temperature, higher the temperature, scattering effect will be higher. So, therefore, scattering rate is proportional to the T to the power of 3 by 2. So, more thermal vibrations will happen at higher temperature, and that increases the probability of lattice scattering, and therefore, reduces the mobility of the electron. Okay. So, for higher temperatures you will experience the electron will experience the slow motion because of more collisions will happen, and more vibrations also we can see from the lattice silicon atoms, and that decreases the speed of or motion mobility of the electron here. This is called lattice scattering. Other factor what we said is impurity scattering. You can see here impurity scattering. So, this is an element what you are seeing is an N type semiconductor. You can see a silicon atoms at neighboring to the arsenic, impurity. Okay, and here we have not shown any such the thermal vibrations here. However, when the electron is moving, it may get hit with the the impurity element here, and it may change its direction also. Okay, you can see that for a doping amount of doping, it depends on 10 to the power of 15 to 10 to the power of 16 per cubic centimeter. That means this is the quantity at which we do the doping, and because of more number of impurity you see in a crystal lattice, and there are chances electron will hit through the impurity element, and it may change its direction here. But observe here, this impurity scattering is now it is inversely proportional to the temperature T to the power of 3 minus 3 by 2. Okay, so it is 1 divided by T to the power of 3 by 2. Okay, so this effect is vice versa compared to the lattice scattering here. At low temperature, what happens is less thermal vibrations will occur, and electrons move will be slower, and more time the electron will spend near the dopant ion, and there are chances of more deflection, and that causes lower mobility. At higher temperature, this whatever we said opposite will happen. Okay, so this is with reference to the impurity scattering and lattice scattering. So what we understood from these two things is there are charge carrier. So to calculate electric current in a semiconductor, apart from electron concentration and hole concentration, the scattering effects also it's very much important here, because scattering decreases the mobility of charge carriers. Okay, now let us go back to the our material. This is what we said. Okay, so the collision which affects the velocity of the carriers, and now particularly we let us now calculate expression, mathematical expression for conductivity and mobility. Okay, this topic is important. Yeah.
Sorry to have interrupted, sir. So you have not shared any attendance link yet.
I can't hear you. Can you come again?
So till now you have not shared any attendance link.
Till now?
Attendance.
Attendance link.
I will share it. Wait for a minute. Okay, I will share it. I will share it in 1 or 2 minutes. I will share that.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so I'll just cover this mathematical aspects, and later on I will share the attendance part. Okay, so at room temperature, the thermal motion of individual electron plays a very important role. That leads to the we told about lattice scattering, and we talked about impurity scattering that deflects the electron motion, and this is what if you consider an individual electron chance of, if I assume that electron starts at this position, and it may go here, and it may have it may hit silicon atom, and it may change its direction, and it may go here, and it may hit another lattice atom, and it may change its direction again here. And if you observe this entire the picture, what you can understand is net motion of electron, individual electron, is very very small, negligibly small. That means the electron is not moving particularly in one particular one direction. Okay, it moves in zigzag fashion, and if you calculate the distance between this starting point and the end point, they are very much small. Okay, so what we need for the current to flow is electron should move in a one particular direction, and there should be some change in distance. Okay, so here the distance change is very small. This is with reference to individual electron, whereas if you look at the large number of electrons here, say for example 10 to the power of 16 per cubic centimeter in n-type semiconductor, there will be no preferred direction of motion again here also. Reason is for the large number of electrons, if you take this as a material, and if you just choose a cross sectional area in this, suppose if this is going to be a box, and if you choose cross sectional area in this, and if you calculate, if you apply some because of thermal vibration, thermal or elevated temperature, chances of moving electrons from left to right will be equivalent to the electron moving from right to left. At any instant of time, if you look at these cross sections, electron crossing in one particular directions is very less. I mean to say that if an average electron, if it crosses from left to right, the same number of electrons may also cross from right to left. That means there will be no preferred direction of motion of electrons, therefore net current flow in this material is going to be 0. There will be no current flow even if you consider a group of electron. We have taken here two cases, one with individual electron. The motion or distance covered by individual electron is also less when we look at a group of electron under thermal elevated temperatures. Even the group of electron movement in a semiconductor, looking from cross sectional point of view, it's very less. Basically current is nothing but I is equal to dq by dt. That means number of charge moving with reference to time, that should increase, but here net movement from in one particular direction is very less. So therefore there is no net current flow in this material because of change in or increase in temperature here. Okay, so that's all for today's class, and next class we will see how to use this mathematical aspects of the equations, mathematical modeling of this charge carriers. We will try to analyze. We'll just apply electric field and we'll see that in which direction the electron movement takes place, and we will also consider scattering effects, and we'll see that whether how much the scattering effects influence the motion of electron. And finally we derive expression for conductivity and then mobility, and lastly we will discuss on what factors conductivity and mobility depends upon, how to improve the conductivity and mobility in a semiconductor. So those things we will discuss in the next class here. So with that I will stop at this point. So next class will continue with this topic itself. Okay.